He was the prodigal son has returned. I don't know if any of you know this, but Rob was enticed away a while back by some fancy CRO kind of job, and then he realized he really missed hanging out with us so much. He's back, so we're really thrilled to have him. So if there's any testament to how great it is to be with Impartner, there's a big yellow walking billboard over there that'll prove that to you. So as Rob mentioned, we have a ton of content. It seems like every ImpartnerCon started out, the first ImpartnerCon was like 90 minutes, and then it gets ratcheted down to 60, and now we're at like 45. And next year I'll just be shouting in the parking lot. It'll be really great. But I was kind of perusing and taking a stroll last night down memory lane with a couple of our long-standing customers over a losing game of billiards. And we talked about how far things have kind of come in the 9 years since we started doing this and as a product. And the very first promises that we made in ImpartnerCon were fairly pedantic, right? We were just talking about kind of productizing some of the things that we had been doing on a fairly custom basis for our customers at that point, asset libraries and event calendars and things like that. And then we evolved from there into kind of the initial state of PRM or partner portals as we knew it. Some of you might even remember this really pretty forest green OG treehouse look right there, so that had been around the game for a while. Anyway, we're talking to a customer who's on his 4th deployment, actually, and was noting how this last one, he actually did it all himself because of all of the evolution of the capabilities and configurable options that happened. So we went from sort of branded web portals with the cool party trick of integrated deal reg, which everyone was very excited about 15 years ago, to a real focus on partner engagement. It was all about the eyeballs. It was pining for logins and number of partners and those kinds of things. Content to try to draw those eyeballs in repeatedly. And I think a lot of that was, frankly, because we didn't have a lot of empiricism. We didn't have a lot of great data at our disposal in channel at that time. So the only thing we really had to report up to our boards that said, see, look, things are happening, is we have more partners than we had yesterday, and we have lots of them logging in and downloading stuffs, right? And so then, as we proliferated that, we started to get a little bit more mature, and we started realizing, hey, just having this mass influx of partners, while fun, and adding to our little black book of partners, right, that's all they ever were, without being able to have consistent outcomes to be able to bring them in and make them successful, right? So we had lots of partners come in, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, kind of like a new college student on campus with mom and dad's credit card and a brand new MacBook and no idea what to do with themselves, right? So they would spend some money, have some fun, and then kind of wash out. We all know what that was like. The Pareto principle of channels was alive and well. So we started focusing on that journey and that complete life cycle, how we take them through in a repeatable, consistent way to make them successful, productive, happy members of our channel societies, if you will. And all of the amenities that came in from a core perspective that are needed for the care and feeding of those partners. We also had a little bit of a realization during that time that to cover the entire gamut of the partner journey end to end and that consistent upward spiral of success, that involved a lot of capabilities and features. And Impartner was never going to be able to be the point solution for all of those things. So we started to realize that we were occupying a central piece of real estate, and we offered a lot of the core bread and butter capabilities. But as programs got a little bit more sophisticated and complicated, other solutions were getting bolted onto it and added onto it. And we evolved into an experience engine that was that single pane of glass layer ran over the top of it to give partners a really nice consumerized experience to navigate all that rather than hopping and logging into different tools. We were doing SSOs by the dozen, it seemed like, every afternoon, those kinds of things. And everything was it became more data-oriented experience, less content, less, branded, and more about substance. So that now takes us to the present, where PRM has become really the center of your Chantech stack, right? So we've added a lot of capabilities to make that extensible, custom data objects, things like that, made the integration easier, workflows, all the things that we need to be able to do at the speed of business with low code, no code, so that we have unified data, unified experience with PRM as the front door experience for your partner to interact with not only the things that are native to Partner platform, but things that are bolted on from elsewhere, and doing that in a way that's completely self-service. So sort of a lot to do there, a little bit of a tall order. But I think we are slowly but surely succeeding in that, and that's one of the themes for this year, is doubling down on that. In fact, we'll hear later from the illustrious Jay McBain, one of the more prolific voices in the industry, said something to the effect of, this is an official marketing quote, by the way, I think he's in the room. I'm blinded, so I can't quite tell. But partner relationship management is something more foundational than ever. And I wanted to amend that very slightly, which is partner relationship management, something, ecosystem operating system. That's really what it's evolved to be. But there's too many systems in that sentence, so it's the ecosystem automation platform, if you will. And so why the vernacular shift? Because it's really a bit of a paradigm shift. Largely because what many in this room are asking us about, quite frankly, which is, what are you doing around ecosystem, right? And being a little bit of the provocative turd that I am, I always ask, well, what are you doing in the ecosystem? What does that mean to you? And that conversation generally distills down to something along the lines of, I have a broader set of partners that are less linear in their programs, that are more hybridized. I talked to one program that we're supporting. In fact, they have a booth out in the pre-funk area. That they had, last I checked, 9 different programs and some hybridization across those partners that didn't stay in their lane necessarily. They were a tiger one day and a bear the next, and a chipmunk later that afternoon. They were wearing different hats for different deals. And they're about to roll out to 13, so they've got a baker's dozen. And most importantly, they're having to design innovative programs for each of those that adds to complexity, but they're now also paying a lot more attention to partners earlier in the buying cycle, right? So we've classically looked at, well, what partners are bringing and closing which deals, right? So we have a one-to-one association, this deal, this partner, this is how much value they're adding to the program. But the reality is that's actually kind of the last little bit. Jay actually, I think, talked about as well, is the number of touch points that happens before the decision phase, and all those touch points that happen. Most of the time, the decision in our current software buying environment, our software buyers are more sophisticated. They've already been influenced during the awareness and the research phases of that, right? So how do we bring in now these influence partners who, before it ever gets to a quote or a potential opportunity, they've influenced a market, or they've influenced someone who a year later is coming back and now saying, hey, maybe now's the time to buy into whatever product it is that we're selling, bringing to market. So we now have the task of having to automate a more complex ecosystem journeys, because the journeys and experience still matter, right? We're not going to lose any refinement there, but now we have a wider number of those and across a increasingly proliferating tech stack. So we've got more things to plug into, more paths. And oh, by the way, right, I won't do a show of hands, it'd be a little bit of a downer, but I think if I were, how many of us in this room have had our team shrink, or at least our budget shrink in channel in the last 12 to 18 months? It's probably a very staggering number, right? Some of you did it anyway, you couldn't help yourselves. But that is the reality, right? Is we're watching our some austere conditions. So we have to essentially do more with less, which is, always the key, sort of Dilbert level way that, we can look at business cynically. But we have to do so in a constrained environment, and we have to do so in an environment that's focused on ROI, right? So that's kind of like, now what's the next step in the evolution? We talked about the ecosystems. The next 2 biggest things that everybody asks and wants to talk about are ROI, right? Because now, again, given those more constrained financial times, it's not enough to just assume, yes, challenge its budget, right? If a CFO is asking the CRO, if I give you $1, generally speaking, they have some pretty fine-tuned mature systems to show demonstrably, I'll give you 5 back. And in the channel, we have so many other routes and paths that goods and services get sold and routes to market. That's a little more challenging for us, but we have to get sharper, crisper, more empirical in how we do that, right? So ROI focus, revenue focus, and an easier way to automate a more complex ecosystem, right? And all layered in, people are always asking, of course, the underpinning of all of that is AI, data, and all of that whole thing. So we'll talk about those 3 things particularly today. So diving into a little bit, first and foremost, the ecosystems. That also means for a lot of people expanding into other markets, right? Where you may have some more variance economically, opportunity speaking. So adding capabilities around how we're dealing with geos and regions. So more nested capabilities, and then all with the idea of ensuring that we're able to model using out-of-the-box capabilities, all of the complexities of those programs globally, so that we're not using unique configurations for those kinds of things, because that always undermines our ability to then have reporting and some of the other tools that are going to make us effective at using that. So whether you're doing theaters, regions, solar systems, right, you can nest all those kinds of things in. And adding the admin data segmentation to make IT teams and data governance teams and compliance folks happy that we're very locked down in terms of who's managing what cohort of dollars within your program. Secondarily, enhancements to currency support. So ensuring that we have baseline capabilities to do programs that are based in currencies other than US dollars and other base currencies across the world. That then segueing into a per deal transaction currency. We see a proliferation of this, where one deals in euros, the other deals in pounds and US dollars, Canadian dollars, whatever the case may be. Hopefully equal opportunity. All the dollars, all monetary units, as Dave said last night, we want to support those. And then getting into translation of currency so that those various currencies have meaning to folks who are doing some analysis from a holistic roll-up view to understand. I don't maybe have a great understanding of what a won or a euro is worth today, but I can make extrapolations from comparative purposes through translation of currency through the app. So we're set up now baseline logistically for global programs. Now it's about program design, where we get our unique evolution of how we're actually going to go to market with programs, how we make a program that's enticing to top talent. So with part of the mantra, if you can dream it up, you can model and operationalize it on Impartner. So that starts with tiering functionality. There are some who say that precious metal tiering may be evolving, and I think that there are some cases in which that's very true. There are certain industries wherein that may be a very premature thing to say, but the good point is I think there's a convergence of things, and the flexibility to model programs as they're going to evolve for today and tomorrow is really the key. So making it easier to operationalize, have reporting around exceptions and overrides to those compliance elections, those kinds of things is essential to ensuring that we can model current today's programs and do those in a very resource-constrained way and operate those efficiently, as well as dial them in to be a little bit less linear. It's not just geography-based, not just partner type-based, but leveraging the full segmentation capabilities so that we can design a tailor-fit program to tailor-fit partner types, and especially in a more hybridized environment. That then leads us to competencies, where we get to the discussion around how do we deal with credentialing in partners, my goodness, credentialing partners in a nonlinear way, in a hybridized matrix way, right? So where this actually manifests itself from a vernacular perspective in your organizations are things like certifications, specialties, achievements, sometimes just badging in a general sense, where it's important to be able to, in a structured way, keep track of what partners have achieved, what they've accomplished, what we trust them to do, and how we want to represent that to the marketplace, and how that should translate into benefits and status and program for them. So that's what competence is all about, giving you a little bit more free-range way to sort of manage the credentialing of partners in a structured, automated way. So starting out, that will first manifest itself in the creating of competencies and by type, again, whether that's achievements, whether that's certification specialties, or a combination thereof, and surfacing that in very visible outlet places such as the marketplace. Followed by a ability to manage those at scale in a very bulk automated sort of way, and then culminating in something that is very partner facing, that is very sort of motivational, if you will, to partners, where they can see at any time the competencies that they've achieved, what is available to them, or automated the actual attainment of those things, so that I know, hey, what are the initial specialties that I can attain? Where can I apply my excess energy and the mental horsepower of my team to go and achieve, so that we can increase our stature in the program, increase the opportunities afforded to us, and our effectiveness in the field. And so those competencies then become sort of a central thing to communicate to the outside market, where we can manage this in a very automated, repeatable, transparent sort of way. So we've set ourselves up for global programs. We are now operationalized our programs, and we've implemented the programs that we've designed. And now it's about how do we actually manage this thing logistically with a pretty small team, right? Without getting into IT, we know kind of the challenging process loop that can entail. And so how do we actually manage all of this interconnectivity of this ecosystem automation? A few different things. First, program templates. We think are be quite game-changing. So that is the ability to take a PRM configuration that you may have configured for various go-to-market routes, say maybe a co-sale configuration that you've set up in your stage, package that whole configuration up and deploy it into maybe your production. Right? So first and foremost, we're saving some labor overhead. I know everyone, even internally at Impartner on the implementation side, has been very excited about that capability, right? But more importantly, where that evolves to is giving everyone in this room, as you're trying out to do programs, as you hear a very inspiring keynote about co-sell programs, that, hey, we're going to start maybe trying doing that. We have a template as a boilerplate to just import right off the bat. And whilst eating a sandwich, right, you've now implemented a new co-sell program. You haven't created help tickets. You haven't done this, 3-week requirements gathering. You have a boilerplate and you're off and running at the speed of business. So that we'll be adding more and more capabilities to that. This already exists in structure, but we'll be adding more and more, so we have the complete configuration options available, so that you essentially have a complete template for an overall program from day one. Whether you want to add that in, you want to add new capabilities, new functionality, you want to support a new program type, you want to roll out a new geo, chances are we'll have a template for that and get you running with immediate gratification. The next piece is, just a little visual of how easy that is to both pull out and import that program template. So the next thing we need to be able to do is actually integrate, right? So we talked about PRM as this sort of central real estate, if we will. We have observed now that, especially on our mid-enterprise plus, we are seeing between 5 and 7 points of integration, right? So PRM is not a standalone piece of software. It's foundational, as we talked about. So this is about how do we take the reins and give them to you and your administrative teams or third parties that you may be working with, consulting partners, of which there are many here at the conference with us today, and give you sort of an integration platform as a service-esque ability to integrate those things very quickly. So first and foremost, there's a catalog of integrations. By year's end, we aim to have on the order of 40 to 50 of these. Most of the integrations with our core preferred partners that you see at the show. We have a lot of great partners doing account mapping, doing things to help you identify your ideal partner profiles and mining that data, collaboration partners, etc. LMSs, you name it. The things that are core and part and parcel and becoming essential kind of first priority snap-ins to Impartner, available as this easy catalog where you're going to drop in your credentials, or best practice would be an API token. Don't tell your IT teams I say credentials, right? So that and make a few setting selections, and you're off and running to the races, right? So before you finish that sandwich, you've imported the template, set up your program, and now you have your first 5 integrations, and you're about ready to go to market and launch this program right before the afternoon's out. So integration is good, right? We're moving data, things like that. But what we really want to do is accomplish is actually orchestrate a real-world business process end to end. So let's take something like mundane that seems a little bit obvious and straightforward, like just partner onboarding or partner activation, as some call it. That doesn't start and stop all within the confines of one system. It may start at Impartner, right, where we're receiving an application to join a program, and we may do some approvals within that, but perhaps it meets a certain threshold, or it's in a certain industry where now finance has to go out and do a credit check, right? So now it's got to go out to a third party, it's got to go to Experian. And then maybe there's contracting that's got to go out and send a full view of DocuSign documents. Then we come back to Impartner for some final approvals, after which now we've got to finish the activation by going out and assigning, adding into certain Slack channels that we use to communicate with our partner cohorts, right? So the end-to-end process maybe touched 3 systems and had 12 different steps. That is more than integration, that's true orchestration. So that is what Orchestration Studio, some of you may have seen this, it's in early access right now. But we will be going to general access with that likely within the quarter. And that is a drag and drop low-code, no-code capability to actually build connected cross-system business processes, right? And do so in preferably no code, but if needed, some code, right? If you want to get real crazy with your technical teams, it's always there. As well as the ability to actually extend PRM itself with some custom endpoints, right? So this really unlocks some, phenomenal cosmic power, if you will, from a integration and, again, more importantly, orchestration capability. So we have the underpinning ways to now move data in a very easy, configurable way, orchestrate very complex processes. And we're doing that because, again, we recognize the speed at which chat tech is evolving, and all of these new capabilities that are evolving to support these new programs that are emerging. Some of yet will probably be invented later tonight in cocktail hour, I don't know. But they're all going to need some sturdy platform shoulders to stand on, right? And that's Impartner. Whether we're in the yellow shirt or the toddler, draw whatever analog you want from there. But it's all about how do we actually make for an ability to extend the platform in a way that is as native as possible, right? So you get all the benefits of this out-of-the-box, slick platform and a unified partner experience and a unified automation layer with which to manage them, but still be able to add your unique secret sauce and differentiate your business, right? One of the common questions is always, but if I don't pixel perfect brand my portal, then what am I, right? That's not your competitive advantage in the marketplace, right? What your competitive advantage in the marketplace isn't that your deal registration process or your deal registration form is unique just to be unique. It's what are you actually doing substantially that is a fundamentally better way of supporting partners or an actual true enabling amenity you're providing. And that's where we focus our effort on, right? So the things that are already established industry, the power locks and windows, take them as they are, right? And then we differentiate our programs on truly unique capabilities. And that's where having the ability to do extensions of not only the data and the logic, but the actual UI, the partner experience comes into play. So a few different things for that. First and foremost, by popular request, people have used our momentum token. So some of you may not be on the administrative side, hands-on keyboard, right? But the folks who are in your teams who are ask about these kinds of things quite frequently, which is where can I take data from like a custom object or other objects and show that in a content page for your partners that's dynamic. So using this to do things like generating product pages for a product catalog, showing inventory for distributors on a real-time basis, right? During the COVID-palooza, this was actually something that was a big issue for particularly folks who are joining through two-tier distribution type programs, right? So where does that actually come into play for actually giving us the ability to do really true, rich extensions of the platform that feel just like they came out of the box, right? So the widget framework, very important for that. You can see an illustration here of where does a widget fit in. That can fit in either on the dashboard or it can even fit in on an actual application page. So if you've got a widget that you want to go out and display the stock quote of a company for which you're currently viewing an opportunity for whatever reason, that's a great use case to extend the out-of-the-box capability with very rich level of controls to add capabilities to the platform. So it's also, by the way, the mechanism that we do for all of our little blocks of UI things. So we're really just opening the tent, if you will, for all the same way that we're accomplishing this internally with our Impartner authored software and extending that to our ecosystem and to our customer base to be able to do likewise. So this is a very drag and drop install, just as easy as it would be installing, say, an app on your phone. Very similar analog there. So these are things that as we develop some widgets, as the community at large develop those, or your own internal tech teams, or even a team that you may have contracted with to build those out. Looks like the rest of the animation, but what you would have seen was the adding of that to a page. So just imagine, and you're not over that, right? And then culminating, sometimes even just a widget isn't enough. We have some very complex needs that we want to build out. And that is where our what we call our MFE, which is basically our micro app infrastructure, comes into play. Where you have a full page canvas, right? But within the confines of the platform and access to all of the platform automation tools underneath it to be able to add whatever you want, whether that's a completely unique, custom, very intense compliance management dashboard, or something like, we actually use this same framework ourselves for our training module and things of that nature, to give you an idea of what that's capable of. Multi-page, complex interactions, control over the routing and URLs, all those kinds of things, to do essentially anything you want. You want to embed Mario Kart or Tetris? Knock yourself out, right? So all of these things culminate together to give you the ability to build end-to-end complete application experience on the platform. Again, all within that unified single pane of glass experience layer for partners. And supported by, we're rolling out a developer center so that you're not on your own island, right, trying to navigate this, as well as a community of Impartner authorized ISVs and promoted ISVs that are going to be developing the core capabilities and experience to be able to do these things as well. So lots of resources available to assist your own internal technology teams, third-party teams, and our internal teams within Impartner as well, to do those sorts of things. But just the thing to note that is we're reaching a point where there's nothing that we would do internally at Impartner that couldn't also be done configurably by a technical team outside of Impartner. So it's really democratizing this process as much as possible. If you want to see a really neat, real-world good example of this, come by our product team table up in the Brain Labs. Robert Harris, I think he's in the room, maybe. Again, I'm being blinded here, so I can't quite tell, but I'll just imagine that he is. That actually goes out and pulls some quoting information from Salesforce and displays that right alongside a opportunity inside of a partner experience, a PX partner experience. To give you a great example of some of the real-world kind of business value you can do with the combination of these capabilities. So now we've got to talk about, okay, we've automated all this stuff, but for why? What do we do with it? And one of the things that we were chatting with Josh actually last night was the fact that when we get to a budget cut or we get some austerity sort of measures imposed and with financial times get a little bit more constrained, we have to justify our dollars. Oftentimes, that conversation with the CFO doesn't go as smoothly as we would like, right? We just talked about our CRO can very confidently state, if you give me $1, I give you back $5, right? And then we say, give us some dollars, and we make really awesome, happy partners, and we're very confident that that translates into growth for the business. And they say, well, can you show me? And we say no, and then we kind of get caught like the corporate latte. So don't be the corporate latte, right? That's what we want to avoid. So first, how do we do that? We have to make sure that we're being very revenue-centric around everything we're doing. And we have the challenge that our direct counterparts don't have as much of having to manage revenue from myriad different streams, right? So we have straight line deal registration, sure, right? We also have leads coming through various traditional methods, sure. But we also now have co-sell deals where we got to keep track of not just partner source revenue, we got to keep track of partner influence revenue. We now have nuance to deal with. We have a referral stream, maybe an affiliate stream. We have to keep track of all these different sources and streams of revenue, and we know to do that all side by side, so we have a holistic composite view of the overall uplift and impact that all of our channel activities are having on the organization completely. So we start with being able to model that, right? I know there's a number of folks here at the show that are not PRM users of any kind, be it in partners or others. I would implore you, if you take one thing away from this, CRM is not a PRM. Friends do not let friends try to make CRM be a PRM. So save yourself a year and $1 million and go with the PRM. And this is one of those areas where that becomes very evident, is being able to model the real world mechanics of a deal in channel and in partnerships. It's not a one-to-one, this opportunity has an owner. It's a deal that may have multiple 4 or 5 different people involved in different roles, from as straightforward as a distributor supplying a product and the selling partner that's selling it, or an implementation or consulting partner that's designing the implementation, to a influence partner who is just a credible third-party voice who joined the call and helped convince them to get over the line that needs to be attributed to, right? So being able to share deals across multi-partners, this is something that will have a fair amount of complexity and configurability to it. So ideal for things like 2-tier distribution, particularly sort of free and open range 2-tier distribution. But then when you get into more complexities like needing to share additional related data around an opportunity and its context, or having some relationship modeling around which partners can work with which partners due to various agreements, territorial considerations, etc., etc. All of that kind of stuff layered in so that you have a flexible model of keeping track of who's involved with a given deal or transaction and in what capacity and in what role, and therefore, by virtue of that, what they should be able to do, see, edit, and action upon. That all then leading into a unified funnel of all of the revenue operations happening within your program. So it's about taking and following a dollar or a pound or euro, right, from just a lead, a form fill somewhere a year ago, and following it all the way through to the MDF campaign or MDF activity that funded it, and the email campaign that brought it to the next step, all the way through to ultimate disposition as a closed piece of revenue, closed business. So advanced lead management that brings to bear the history and the scoring and all the different things that kind of lead into that. So you bring the same level of sophistication and visibility that you have for your direct funnel to your now indirect as well. And that's essential because attribution is very, very key. There is what I sometimes refer to as the dandelion model of channel management, which is you take a dandelion and you blow it into the wind, and all of those little spores go everywhere, and we're pretty confident that means more dandelions somewhere, right? As if our goal was to make more dandelions, I guess. That's kind of a bad analogy, I'll have to work on that. But nonetheless, it's this presumed impact, but you can't quite track, right? So this is like putting little GPS trackers on all the dandelion spores. I'm going too far with that analogy, so I'm going to stop now. But full attribution is critical to us, again, not only avoiding being the corporate latte, but starting to really be viewed as the magic money printing machine into which more investment from our companies will go, right? So full attribution of the funnel, so we know not only what is partner sourced revenue, that's pretty direct, but also again the partner influenced revenue, all side by side together. So we need to be able to see that end to end, and we need to be able to track that partner involvement across campaigns and all the other activity that go into it. So attribution, sort of key, yeah? That also means now we have a system that is set up very nicely for taking demand and turning it into closed revenue and growth and bottom line numbers that our C-suite and boards and investors all care about. So we have a machine now that is doing that and processing that efficiently and with high conversion rates. It's about how do we actually dump more demand into that machine. And that comes from obvious places like TCMA, but also some less obvious places, right? So things like your marketplaces and partner directories, right? How do we refine those so that those actually serve as greater sources of demand gen? There's actually a session tomorrow, Anne, I think, is here, yes, Anne and Seth, that will be talking through exactly how to wield such a tool in such a manner to actually help provide more demand. So we'll be augmenting the products that help funnel in and create demand as well. So new map search for those marketplaces, and ability to actually see and interrogate and understand the effectiveness of those marketplaces. So the engagement reports, how effective those are being in terms of actually providing more opportunities and at-bats for our partner teams. Pre-selected filters so we can deploy multiple marketplaces for different audiences, right? So a distributor lookup and a tech partner lookup, those kinds of things. TCMA, of course, no conversation on demand gen would be complete without talking about TCMA. I will not steal Emil's thunder as he will be on this stage, I believe, at the same time tomorrow to give you a little more in-depth look at that. But understand that there's some key importances to the synergy and the overall experience that our account managers are going to experience with TCMA by fully assembling that and having the synergies realized with that platform. So complete support of segmentation, the same workflow, the orchestration, engines and things that we talked about earlier, available to TCMA as well. So you have that complete end-to-end that I keep saying over and over again, around from demand gen all the way through to demand services. That also means adding additional strength around campaigns and campaign kits and the campaign dimension, by which we can attach and associate all of the other deals and opportunities and revenue flow through our total ecosystem assigned to campaigns. So that becomes a very central measuring unit to be able to understand how effective your marketing campaigns and your dollars, your dandelions, if you will, that are being put into the wind within your space. News on demand, very similarly, beginning a similar treatment. We've actually already completed the work. It's been a little bit under the radar, but we completed the work of moving all of that over from the partner experience perspective. So single sign-on, New Zealand, and one portals are all but gone at this point on a go-forward basis. And we're doing the same thing from the administrative side. So News on Demand will be fully running natively within PRM, and will be attached into all the same sort of capabilities, so that we can start to open a door to leverage News on Demand in an actual demand gen type capacity, and not just in a partner engagement type capacity. So yes, more tightly integrated, nicely synergistic partner experience, but also opening that up to start functioning from a demand generation perspective as well, and making more effective at servicing that demand as well through communication integrations with that, such as Slack, Teams, things like that, to communicate at real speed with partners. Also, things that just are generally, perceived as just engagement tools can become lead generation tools. So recently added to Asset Library, the ability to share some of those links out publicly as permalinks, so that actually can generate some traffic, some eyeballs, some trackable bits of dandelion, if you will, that can ultimately generate leads, and also just make this stuff a little bit easier to manage at scale for your partners, and ensure that they have all the material that's being armed to go out and generate that demand and service what's in the market. It's also something that people have asked about, I wanted to include, and didn't very easily fit into other areas of the presentation. So we will now have a hard transition and move into data. And that's really where all of this kind of culminates to. We talked about the importance of having all of this in a structured, configurable way within the platform, which is essential because you're going to have data that has a complete 360 view, transparency to this entire operation, this entire machine, all this menagerie that we're putting together. And it's got to be able to do that out of the box, because I don't think that your teams of 1 or 2 or maybe 5, if you're very, very fortunate from a research perspective, are going to become data analysts overnight, right? So how do we make this out of the box easy for you to, first and foremost, implement a strategy? Brad Pace has, at various points throughout the conference, and will do so further, talked about the ROI validated channel, and how from on an implementation side of the house, where the partner is really coaching and challenging and having a more high-level conversation with our customers around what the value of PRM is supposed to be, right? So sometimes the conversation of, hey, we bought PRM, and just by virtue of buying it didn't necessarily, generate all the value that we wanted, because we weren't quite sure what it is that we were trying to do in the first place, right? So that's always the first question: well, what are your goals for your program, right? How can we assess the value of our investment without understanding what we're trying to accomplish in the first place? So first thing, program level planning, so that we can actually operationalize the strategy that we've devised in the real world, and now put that into something that we can now start to measure and operate against, right? So operationalize it at a program level, and then we can then back into individualizing some targets and operationalizing strategy with use of like business planning tools and things like that. Now we get into, great, we've got things humming, we've got all this revenue flowing through our processes. How do we get to analysis at a program level? Well, a number of out-of-the-box core dashboards built around engagement, built around revenue, that allow you to drill in, slice and dice, segment those sorts of capabilities, do all the things that you would expect from enterprise-level analytics, but now applying this to channel in a level of richness and detail that has really not been possible before within the partnership space, without a very huge, heavy investment in consultants and some custom work and those kinds of things, right? So you're able to sort of examine and your success and try to look for macro trends, something that seems to be working, and not zoom really into answer the question of why that's working or not, and slice and dice it. And then perhaps most importantly, you're doing so, again, macro level, the entire revenue picture across all of your programs, your entire channel pipeline, your entire channel funnel, and doing that, again, with the very, very core focus on revenue ROI contribution to the business. And then from there, the ability to then go a step further, add your own value as channel management teams, or maybe you've got some consultants that you may be working with to help you strategize, to borrow from George Bush, an approach or maybe a unique piece of functionality you've added to the business, a unique use case or a unique program style that you've added to the business, right? And how do we actually instrument reporting to be able to track and monitor the success of that? So be able to create and manage your own analytics, and importantly, share those to people who have not traditionally been as involved with the channel, right? We, as a platform vendor, have often had a lot of our conversations with heads of channel, and we're starting to have more and more conversations with people on the finance side, right? Who are looking for the financial justification. They're not in PRM, they're not part of your channel teams, but they are now an important stakeholder that you want to be able to show and share the success of all of your programs and operations where you're contributing to the business. Ultimately, this all essentially boils down to the goal of making everybody in this room look like and feel like a hero, right? So to systematize winning, understand what's contributing to winning, what's detracting from winning, by comparing not only just the absolute performance of a partner, this partner has influenced $1 million in revenue. That may be good, that may be bad, relative to their capability, their size. Is that good by comparison to their peers in segment? And then what about our program at a macro level? Would be really nice to be able to go to our board and our executive team who's making investment decisions and definitively state and show that we are actually overperforming relative to market, our peers in industry, our competitors, in an anonymized sort of benchmarking kind of way, right? To have that kind of information, as well as pinpoint scorecarding around a partner and their individualized performance. So we know what makes a really good partner now, so we can then apply that to our Impartner ecosystem provided ideal partner profile recruiting tools, right? So we know who to really target, who to divest from, and now we understand what makes up a very productive, profitable, and successful partner in our ecosystem, and we can evaluate very easily other partners and look and see where their soft spots are, where we can hone in and help them improve an area that's highly correlated to ultimate revenue production, right? So making heroes with that insight and then sharing that out. All of this analysis that we'll do internally is of somewhat limited value if we're not able to share that transparently with partners who are actually in the field out trying to make these things happen, right? So all of the analytics and insights that we'll concoct and examine and interrogate and slice and dice and create together, we'll share with the partners so we're singing from the same sheet of music, a sweet, sweet harmony, right? And they then have the ability to then use that motivationally and understand how they're being evaluated on a day-by-day basis. They know how they're actually trending towards becoming in that, reaching the objectives and targets and the things that they have for the business and that you've mutually agreed upon, right? Now, kind of one more little thing as an aside before we wrap up. Some of you may have noticed we did an earlier session yesterday. A few of these screenshots look an awful lot like they're not partner-facing, they're actually internally admin-facing, but they look substantially different than the current administrative interface, and you would be right if you had made that assessment. So there is an underpinning to all this, which is a focus on revenue is really also a focus on the people who are tasked on a day-to-day basis with shepherding that revenue, right? So our account managers who are responsible for entire cohorts of your business, regions, whole segments of the partner group, et cetera, and what it is that they're going to be able to need to do when they come in Monday morning and sit down and have a cup of coffee and see and understand how their overall book of business is performing in the area that they have stewardship over. So the PRM admin will be undergoing some heavy amounts of redesign to really enhance the experience for those account managers, give them a nice place to do work, and understand what they need to do on a day-to-day, not only how their cohort is performing from a revenue perspective, but how the recruiting funnels are performing within their relative areas of responsibility, and into the particulars of a given partner. When somebody calls us at their fingertips the entire history of what that partner's done, so I can see, gosh, this partner looks like they're about to bubble over and explode into high performance territory, and I see what competencies they're working on, what things what asks they have of me, what asks they have of them, all in a single sort of place to manage that relationship. True partner relationship management, if you will, right? Lastly, things like unified center for approvals, so on and so forth, right? So we've kind of covered focus on ecosystem automation, focus really, really hardcore on ROI as the central tenet to everything we care about, doing so with the underpinning of data and an AI that surfaces not only insights, but some machine-suggested next best steps to optimize those kinds of things. So, in terms of product changes, that's what we have for you today. My obligatory plug for product board. This is where a lot of this information, if you want to follow on, make suggestions, vote about what you care about, that's always accessible from within the application under the sign-in menu. And we also have our illustrious product team. If you're in the room, maybe stand up or raise a hand real quick. Please come by and see and visit us in the Brain Labs. And we'd love to coerce you into also taking product feedback survey so that you can help us help you. So go ahead and snap a photo of that and or come up to Brain Labs for a minute and sit down with us and we'll go through that survey so that we can understand what you care most about, where to concentrate our efforts in improving life for everybody that's trying to make a ROI-driven ecosystem dreams come true. Thanks, everyone.